Everyone knows ETH grinding is the best way to make money on Sorare, but how much money should you put into your ETH grinding team? And what kind of return does that help you to get on the back end? We're going to take a look at 3 different teams, a big budget, small budget, and medium budget teams, to see how much we put in and how much we would have gotten out had we used those players this season. Stay tuned next. Hello and welcome to another video on the channel. This is Chris, the MLS card guy. Today we're going over ETH grinding. How much money should we be putting into our teams? What kind of budget is that going to get us on the back end when we talk about rewards, winning cards, running ETH prizes, all of that kind of fun stuff. So we've put together a few teams. We're going to go over the teams really quickly. I'm going to give you a few of the assumptions that I made. We're also going to go over some of the limitations of this little experiment, but this is just so that you guys can visually see how much you could possibly win over the course of a year having an ETH grind team. A lot of you guys are in Division 5 right now, thinking about maybe moving up to Division 4. Hopefully this will give you some idea of the kind of returns that you can get in Division 4. Division 4 should be your bread and butter as far as actually winning profit and returning cards on Sorare. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So here we have the team that we put together. So we're just going to quickly go over what this spreadsheet is, exactly what each of the boxes means. So here we have our players that we selected with their position. This is the cost of the player in terms of ETH. When I looked it up, I think it was last night, maybe 2 days ago. This is their price in US dollars. This is the current price of ETH right now. So this is linked to the current price of ETH. And then these are their scores. So the first week, Keegan had a 61.9, Willis had a 17.6, Jose had a 47.1, Freddie Montero had a 66.9, and Jonathan Mensah had a 61.6. So in week 1, the first line here is always going to be our captain, so they get a 25% bonus. The rest of the 4 guys here are going to get 5% bonuses. Now, when you're actually in the game, you should be getting more than 5% bonuses. You should be getting more than 25% on your captain, but that's just a common baseline that I use just to get a good idea of what kind of point return that we're going to get. I selected the captain. This is just the player that I feel is the best player over the course of the season, and this captain does not change week to week. So I'm not selecting a captain based on matchups, which I would do during the normal regular season. I'm not even selecting a captain based on if he is hurt or not. So Keegan got hurt the last 3 games, so he's getting 0 as our captain over the last 3 games. Jose Martinez here missed 3 games. Now these were red cards. You would have known about this ahead of time. You should have subbed him out of your lineup. But again, to make things simple here, I'm going to say that you just blindly start these 5 guys every single game in the same order every single game. This is the kind of roster scores that you would expect to return. One other caveat with these lineups, the higher the budget gets, the less of a concern this becomes. But this is a backward-looking lineup. This is the guys that did well this season. You could purchase guys, especially on the lower end. You could purchase guys that don't pan out, that don't have good seasons, that don't return for you. That's always a risk. This is assuming that you pick good players that that do return really, really well for you guys. So this goes over every single week. These scores are all manually inputted from their player pages. And this gives you the total of what they did, including DNPs, over the entire season. So I only did it to 33 weeks because there hasn't been a week 34 yet. So 45.2 over 33 games for Keegan Rosenberry. That's an average. That includes these zeros here, right? So Joe Willis, I believe this is. The other thing with a common keeper, I gave him a bonus of 55%. That is essentially the common penalty. So you lose almost half the score for Joe Willis. So that is actually included in here, seeing as how you're not actually paying for a goalkeeper because this is the cheapest team. I'm assuming most of you guys would use common goalkeepers if you're going to go the cheap route. And that's the scores that you would get naturally, so like a 70.7, and then in the actual final tabulation down here, it only counts 55%. You can see these count 125%, 105%, and so on. So that's a little bit of a caveat. With the lower budget team, it's very difficult to pick good players, but if you can find really, really good players, you can return really good prizes at a really, really efficient rate, as we'll go over here in a few seconds. So Just quickly with the selection of the team, Keegan is a guy that I've been using all season long. Highly, 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 highly recommend him at 0.02. You are not going to find a more consistent, better defender than Keegan Rosenberry. Period. End of story. 0.02 is too cheap for him. Period. End of story. He will pay for himself probably 6 or 7 times over during the course of the season. Another one is Jose Martinez. I was using him in the beginning part of the year. He had a really good middle of the season. His price rose to 0.05 and I sold him. I will be looking to probably get back into him at this price. 0.018 is again too cheap for him. Freddie Montero, a little caveat with him. He is 34, so you don't know how much you're going to really get out of him next season. So this price may be a little bit deceptive. You may have to spend a little bit more on forward, but a guy like Yu Kubo comes to mind. As another guy in that bottom tier range that you could afford that would potentially return you points. The only thing with Kubo is him staying on the field. Mensah, another really, really good one. Again, a little older, so maybe have to worry about that a little bit. Let's see, any other caveats? So with Jose Martinez and Jonathan Mensah, I'm only including their MLS scores. Both of those guys had Champions League scores, and Jose Martinez actually has international scores as well. So you would actually get more utility out of those two guys. But I did not include that, just again for the sake of simplicity, to keep things very, very straightforward. So you can see each week is tabulated, seeing if we would win an ETH prize or not. And then over here at the end, we have all the results. So the total price of the team right now to buy this team today would be $303.66. Not a really, really expensive team. That's the minimum amount that I would recommend getting into an ETH grind with. If you have less than that, maybe buy a team in a championship or in a Division 5 setting, and try to build up your bankroll a little bit. But I would say 300 is the bare absolute minimum that you could go to try to effectively build an ETH grind team. Over the course of one season, this team would have won $1,359.68, which is a very, very good return. Really no complaints about that. You see about a third of the time they're hitting the higher threshold, and about 23% of the time they're hitting the lower threshold. So combine those two, they're getting a cash prize about half the time. So if you're buying a team, like I said over here, you're going to buy this team for 0.02, 0.01, so like 0.07 roughly is what you're going to pay for that team. And half the time you're going to get at least 0.01 back. You're going to make up your money in like 7 weeks, right? So again, a very efficient way to build a lineup, but this way is risky. If you don't have a lot of money, you can definitely try to do this, and you can win some weeks. You probably would not be quite this successful, I would say, but it is possible to do. And then you can see 328 is the average that you need to win a card, just the base card in this division generally. You can see we did that one time, so we might have had one actual card prize, and then 400 or over to get a really, really big prize. We did not do that at all this year. Efficiency is just the total winnings of the team divided by the price. So we returned 4.5 times our money on this team. So a really, really good team. Again, keep those caveats in mind. Not something that is easy to do by any means with this little of a budget. I would recommend at least 500 if you want to try an ETH grind, but it can be done for less than that, especially if you buy right now. If you wait till the beginning of the season, these prices probably double. You probably are not getting a good enough team for. You might be able to swing 700 for a team like this. So you can see that cuts into your winnings quite a bit. So I would definitely recommend trying to get a team now, especially if you're on a small budget. Now we're gonna move to medium budget here. So we've got Darlington Nagbe. We do have a rare keeper, Jimmy Maurer. He is my absolute go-to right now because his price is rock bottom. He is, in my opinion, he's just about guaranteed to start next season. I mean, it always could be where they bring back Felipe and have him start just because he's younger, but I can't see it. I think Jimmy Maurer is much, much better. So I'm going with Jimmy Maurer. I have a ton of his cards personally. And then we go Fafa Picault, who's been very, very good this season. Again, no guarantees that he's good next season, but he's been very consistent, and he's at a very reasonable price. Rudy Camacho, is in the team as well. And then we also have Keegan Rosenberry. So this is, again, why I recommend Keegan Rosenberry so much. Not only is he good on the small budget team, he actually makes the medium budget team as well. So that helps keep our costs down. So even with the rare goalkeeper, which takes up a lot of our budget, we're able to stay under $1,000. We would return $1,800 with this one. So we return more money, but obviously we spent more money, so we kind of expect that. We're hitting higher threshold almost 40% of the time. We're hitting lower threshold 40% of the time. So that means we're winning something 80% of the time. It's a really, really good return. That's kind of that's the area that you would want to be in to really maximize your efficiency. We're not really hitting too many card prizes here. So I wouldn't recommend you guys try to go buy these players in like Division 5. Because you're only going to hit a card prize 3% of the time, which is not a whole lot. You want to get players that are really, really good in whatever division you want to compete in. Except with ETH Grind, you have this 80% that you can add in here. And then again, we didn't get over 400 at all. So this returns 1.84 times your money. So again, very efficient team. We upped our winnings to almost 2,000. We're getting a prize 80% of the time. So while these players are a little bit more expensive, and especially Jimmy Maurer in particular, if you can afford it, I would definitely get a goalkeeper now while you can get them for 0.08. Because Jimmy Maurer, in all honesty, should be worth 0.2. He by the start of next season, he should be worth 0.2 ETH. So if you're getting him now at 0.08, that's an absolute steal in my opinion. Same thing with Fafa Picault. I would be surprised if he's under 0.1 by the start of next season. He's a very, very solid forward who is going to contribute every single week that he's healthy. Keegan, I've already said his price is ridiculous. So, again, just some guys that are kind of at the lower end. You can see really the big difference between this team and the small budget team. We spent a tad bit more on the midfield defender and the extra player, but really we're upgrading at forward and we're upgrading at goalkeeper. Those are the two that are going to really set your team apart. If you have a little bit more than just a minimum budget to spend, those would be the two positions that I would say to focus on. Because when you're buying a midfielder or a defender, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck anyway. Go ahead and spend up at a forward and goalkeeper so that you can have all 5 positions be producing for you. So now we're going to move on to the big budget team. So these are the best of the best, right? The creme de la creme. Maxi Morales had a wonderful season, and because he is so old, his price is only 0.047. Again, I don't know if he can repeat this next season, but his price this year was too low. He produced all year for people, and he made people back more than 0.047 over the course of the season, guaranteed. Kai Wagner, another one, 0.11, so we're spending up a lot more at defender, but we're getting an elite defender. We could, I would say, if I was going to replace one player in this team, it would be Kai Wagner, because I think we could spend a lot lower than that on a defender and still get really elite production. But Kai Wagner is elite production, and he's, good age, and we think he's coming back next year and all the good stuff. Dejome is my number 1 forward for ETH Grind in MLS. He also happens to be one of the cheaper ETH Grind forwards. I absolutely love this dude. I've had him for the last 7 weeks, and every single time he produces for me. I am in love with Christian Dejome. I wouldn't sell him for less than 0.16, to be honest with you, right now. And again, I expect that price to rise. We go Brad Guzan for the goalkeeper. Again, somebody that you can afford relatively cheaply. You could go, Maurer, but he missed some time. You could go with some of the other goalkeepers, but I don't really want to spend a whole lot on my goalkeeper. Most goalkeepers are the same. The only thing we really need to worry about is, are they starting? And then we have Alex Ring, another one of the really underrated guys. 0.054 is just simply too low for him. He averages 60, I think. Oh, 51.6. He must have missed some games. Yeah, he missed 1, 2, 3. He missed 3 games in there. So he's averaging, when he's actually playing, he's averaging more than 51.6. But again, you're not always going to know. If a guy rests, sometimes you just get a DNP out of nowhere. It's really good with this lineup that you can get a DNP and still get a 0.01. DNP, still get a 0.01. DNP out of the captain, still get a .01. DNP out of the captain, still get a .02. DNP here, .01. DNP here, .02, .02, .02. So, I mean, we can basically take a DNP and still get a cash prize with this team. We had 1 week where we had 2 DNPs and we couldn't quite get to the prizes there. But outside of that, I don't think we missed another week. So we were just about 100%. It took 2 DNPs and one of them being our captain for us to not get a prize at any week. So if you do have the budget, this total winnings was $2,500. So we really did up that quite a bit. So if you have a good amount of money to put into a team, you should still be focusing on ETH grind. It shouldn't just be you take a cheap team to ETH grind and then go to other teams. This is where you should be making most of your money. This is $1,200 more than the small budget team, and we spent $1,500 more. So we're still spending more money, but then we also have these guys that we can sell at the end of the season as well. So again, 67%, 2/3 of the time we're hitting the top prize. 94% of the time we're hitting a prize. Again, I think we only have the 1 week where we didn't hit a prize, and week 34. 20.59% of the time we're winning a card. So that's another thing to add in here. 1/5 of the time we're adding on to the winnings that we get, and we're actually going to add a card as well. So that's just another reason to kind of, if you can afford it, get some of these big budget players, use them in ETH grind. I hear a lot of people say it's overkill. It's not overkill if you're winning stuff. If you're winning bigger and bigger prizes, it is not overkill. And then percentage of plus 400, so we would even get a huge prize once. Again, this isn't the most efficient team. You could definitely spend less, but as far as total winnings, you aren't going to win more with a smaller budget. You can only really win more with a bigger budget. So I hope that kind of puts things. I hope that kind of put things a little bit into perspective for you guys as far as what you can potentially return. First of all, on an ETH grind, you can potentially be very, very lucrative. It doesn't scale as well as you would like it to. It doesn't necessarily mean more money that you put into it, you're going to win more money back out. It's a lot more about picking players. It's a lot more about finding guys that will consistently put up points for you every single week. And when those guys don't put up points, getting other guys that will put up points for you. So I think that's going to do it for the video today. You guys are the best over on the Discord, always asking questions on the Twitter account, leaving comments on the YouTube, liking everything, subscribing. You guys know what to do. I really, really appreciate you guys with all the support. We're growing like crazy right now. It is awesome to see. But until the next time, World Champion Atlanta Braves.